Hi guys, welcome to Chef Mooney coming to you from Mooney's Kitchen. Today I'm going to make a beautiful lamb casserole. French inspired. It is going to be absolutely delicious. Come on, let's get cooking. Now I've got a whole shoulder of lamb here. It's just under 2 kilos. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it into large chunks. Now the shoulder is a good piece of meat to use because it is a little bit more fatty than the leg. And it's going to give us a nice, tender, beautiful casserole. And in no particular order, what I want to do is I just want to trim off a little bit of the fat on the outside of this shoulder. I'm just going to do that as I go. Just trimming away, so I don't want too much fat in the casserole. Just the outer edge there, if you can see that. Just cut that outer edge of fat just a little bit off the edge there. Now I want to keep these in fairly large chunks, just nice and big. I don't want it to shrivel up into nothing. So I'll continue on with this part of the recipe, and then we're going to add the other ingredients and I'll show you those as well. Okay guys, let's just go over the ingredients. I've got about 2 kilos of the lamb shoulder. We're going to use all of that. The recipe only calls for 1 kilo, but I'm kind of doubling up here. I've got some shallots there. I'm going to leave some of them whole and cut the big ones in half. I'm going to use about 4 bay leaves. We're going to use a bunch of thyme, about 200 grams of mushrooms, and I'm not going to do anything to them. I'm going to leave them whole. We've got about 4 large carrots. I'm using some olive oil, some white wine, some tomato paste down the back there, and then we're going to use some celery. I've got some parsley there. We've got about 3 cloves of garlic, and we're going to get all these together now. But the first order of business is we want to get some olive oil in the frying pan there, and we're going to fry off this in batches. You'll see how we go from there. I might thicken this with a little bit of flour. We might toss a bit of flour and seasoning through the meat first, so it goes nice and brown. That's going to be part of our thickening agent, but it will only be about a tablespoon of flour, all-purpose flour. We'll season it and we'll go from there. Now you're also going to need yourself a lovely, nice, thick skillet or pan that's got a thick base to it with a tight-fitting lid, because we're going to be putting this into the oven. Okay, so we want to add a little bit of sea salt to the lamb. I want to season it with some cracked black pepper. And we're going to dust it with a bit of flour, and we just want to coat this lightly. And we're going to start cooking this off in our skillet. A little bit of olive oil, get the pan nice and hot. Okay, on a medium-high heat you want to put your skillet on, and we're going to add around about 3 big glugs of olive oil just to coat the bottom of the pan. You want to get that nice and hot. Now the oil is nice and hot, I'm just going to start putting the meat in, and I just want to cover the surface of the pan. I don't want to overcrowd it, because what I don't want is the meat to start boiling. We want a nice colour on this. And just don't touch it, just let it caramelise and get that nice crust on the bottom before you start moving it around. Okay, now with some tongs, just turn it over. And just let the other side cook a little bit. We're starting to get a nice sear on this now. Right out. Leave the pan on, medium-high. And then we'll repeat the process with the second and third batch. Okay, so while the meat is now cooking away, I'm just going to slice up this garlic. We're going to chop our parsley up. And we're going to put the rosemary in whole. We've got our carrots, which I'm just going to take the ends off, and I'm going to slice them on the diagonal. Celery, again on the diagonal, just to give it a bit more contrast. Mushrooms I'm going to leave whole. We are adding some brown sugar. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but we are adding brown sugar just to take away a little bit of that acidity from the tomato paste. Okay, so the last batch is still in, and you've got that beautiful fond on the bottom of the pan there. What I want to do now is toss in my shallots, followed by my celery. And toss in the mushrooms. And give this a good stir. And we want to let that cook out. We'll now toss the rest of the meat in, which is the batch that we cooked before. Followed by my carrot. I'm going to add my chopped garlic, fresh parsley. I'm adding 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Now the smell in this kitchen, by the way, is absolutely fabulous. Of course we need some stock in this. We'll just give that a bit of a mix around, then we can add the stock. I'm adding 500 ml of beef stock, 4 bay leaves, a bunch of rosemary and a bunch of thyme, and we can pick these out later. Lid on and into the oven. So there you go guys, that's my French casserole, beautiful soft tender lamb, and I've finished it off with some green beans and some Lyonnaise potatoes. Classic French. It's been cooking for 3 hours and the lamb is super tender, it falls apart, look at that. Beautiful French cuisine. Well, I hope you give that recipe a try. Don't forget to check me out on Facebook and Twitter. Until my next recipe, have yourselves a fantastic week. Take care.